Hey everybody, welcome into Faith in Football. My name is Neil. Today's show, we're wrapping up our Old Faces, New Places series with a quarterback slash tight end episode. And I'm going to be honest with you, the tight ends, not really that exciting. Quarterbacks, there's a few flashes. One extremely notable one that we're going to kick off the show with. And I'm going to be honest with you, the show today took kind of a change in the development as I was researching and searching for a word for today's show. Initially, by doing backups, I was going to talk about Andrew and how he was a backup to Peter and things of that nature, but it didn't really fit because some of these guys that we're going to be talking about are starters. They're not really backups, so it didn't really fit. And this is where I want to challenge you guys to, when you're diving into the word, when you're diving into your lineups, go a little deeper, kind of delay reactions, because we tend to have, not only in fantasy football but in life, kind of a knee-jerk reaction to things when they happen. We think that we have to react immediately, and that's not always the case. Sometimes the best thing to do is to kind of take a step back, evaluate what's going on, look at your options, and see what is really the best path to take. Pray on it and listen to the word, listen to the voice of God. And sometimes, look, I know myself, I have problems hearing from God from time to time as well. And it's a thing of you're not close enough. Okay. Remember, the Bible tells us that he's a still small voice. Now, if someone's really close to you, they don't have to yell. They don't have to shout. They don't have to get your attention because they already are close enough for you to hear them. So if you're close enough, God's not going to knock down your door. He's not going to blare and yell and scream. He's just going to, very calmly, very quietly whisper to you and tell you which way to go. Are you sensitive enough to know when to take that next step, to know where to go? Because during the season, you're going to see that there are going to be times when you need to be sensitive to what's going on in the league, in NFL. You're going to need to be aware. Just as in life, you're going to need to be aware of when to make that next step. Sometimes you miss your opportunity and it passes you by. That doesn't mean that God's left you. That doesn't mean that he's forsaken you. It just means that you weren't listening. So he's going to get your attention another way. Now, I personally pray that my soul is sensitive to the Spirit of God and to his leading, to his voice, to make myself sensitive to what he wants me to speak on. And he brought this to me at sitting in church just yesterday. Today's Monday, the 5th of August, as I record this. So if it gets out a little later, apologies, but be patient. We're not a full-fledged professional channel here. So again, don't get paid for this. So I'm doing this as an act of love, and I hope you guys appreciate it. Down at the bottom, while I have your attention on that one, remember, subscribe, like, and share, and make sure that you leave me a comment down at the bottom. I want to know where you're from. I want to know what kind of league you're playing in. And if you have any struggles, whether it be fantasy football related or not, please, down at the bottom, let's connect and talk about things. So what the word was that was brought to me for this show was God of second chances. Because as you look at all of these quarterbacks that we're going to be looking at, backups, all they want is a second chance. That's what they're there for. They're there in case something goes wrong with the starter. They get to step in and show what they're made of. Point in case, Kirk Cousins is the first one that we're talking about. And the scripture for today, before we get into Kirk and his journey from my boys in Washington to the Dirty Birds down in Atlanta this year, we're talking Luke chapter 22, verse 55 through 61. This is where, oh, sorry, I don't have that up. There we go. This is where Peter denies Christ. And he was told ahead of time when he was talking all this smack and he was telling Jesus that, hey, I'm never going to leave you. These guys, they might bail on you, but I will always be there. And Jesus told him, you will deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. And Peter's like, man, no way. This isn't going to happen. I mean, how many times in life are we certain that we're going to be there for our loved ones? That we're going to be there when the chips are down, when things get tough, but then things really get tough. We're really forced with that situation that we never thought we would be faced with, and we fail. We feel down, we feel discouraged. Peter went through that same thing. He went through denying Christ. Had somebody come up to him and goes, hey, weren't you the one that was with Christ? He's like, no, that's not me. Happened 2 more times. Finally, he was like, I don't know him. And as soon as the words left his mouth, the rooster crowed and the Lord looked at him and he ran off. Now, I can only imagine what Peter must have been feeling at that time, that his worst fear, that he let down Jesus Christ. He let down the Messiah, the one that he was following for 3 years. He picked up in it at his beginning. He was there for the miracle when he caught the load of fishes, and he walked through him. He cut a man's ear off when they were trying to take him in the garden. So this isn't a guy who is all talk and no action. Peter had action, but when the chips were down, when things were really getting serious, he had a lapse. He failed. How many times have you failed? How many times have you just made the wrong decision at the wrong time and felt like there was no coming back? Now, we pick it up in Mark chapter 16, verse 7. There's something I want to show you here. This is where Mary and the other Mary went to go to the tomb after Jesus had been resurrected. Now, they didn't know he had been resurrected. They didn't know he had risen yet. They got to the tomb and they saw the angel of the Lord, and the angel of the Lord told them this. It says, but go tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you. That's from Mark chapter 16, verse 7 in NIV. Now, here's the thing, is that Peter was named specifically. Now, remember, Judas has already killed himself after he betrayed Christ. So they're down to 11 disciples. So after the resurrection, there's 10 other guys that they're only referred to as disciples. But the Lord, the angel of the Lord, specifically called for Peter because he knew that Peter was distraught, that Peter was the one who had denied Christ. The other guys, they were gone. They didn't hang around. They weren't there. They didn't have to worry about being in that situation and making that decision. Peter did. Peter had gone back to what he knew before. How many times have we failed and gone back to what's comfortable, gone back to our old ways, gone back to the things that got us in trouble in the first place just because that was comfortable? A lot of times these quarterbacks, they fail and they never recover. Some of them pick themselves back up, they find a new team, they find new inspiration, and they move forward. That's what I want you to take into today's show as you listen to these stories of these quarterbacks. And here's the thing. This show is God of Second Chances with the Old Faces, New Places. It's kind of a subtitle. So God of Second Chances is the underlying thing that I want you guys to take away from this, that these quarterbacks have gotten second chances. Some of them in third and fourth. And I want you to understand that we serve a God that doesn't keep score. He doesn't keep track of our mistakes. as long as we confess them to him, he forgives us. And it's kind of ironic, or actually appropriate, that it was Peter who asked Jesus, how many times should I forgive someone? And in Matthew chapter 18, verses 21 through 22, in the NLT, it reads like this. Then Peter came to him and asked, Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times 7? And Jesus answered him, said, no, not 7 times, but 7 times 70, which is 490. Now, was Jesus telling them to keep track, to really count 490 times? No, because here's the thing that a lot of people, when they read this, they don't see, is that he never says 490 times in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year. There's no specification as to when this forgiveness ends, because it never does. Jesus wants us to forgive others as he forgives us. That's one of the commandments that he gave us, was that we are to love our neighbors as ourselves, and we are to forgive others that have sinned against us, just as he forgave us. We messed up first. We were the ones who sinned against him, and he still forgave us. So as we dive in to Kirk Cousins and the Dirty Birds down in Atlanta, remember that these guys had second chances, third chances, the same way you do. The same way you, every morning you wake up, you have an opportunity to make it right. No matter what you did yesterday, no matter what you did last week, you have an opportunity to do the right thing. So remember that as you go in, and let's listen up to my boy, Captain Kirk. Look, I love Kirk Cousins. I loved him when he came out. I remember when they drafted RG3, and in the same draft went after Kirk Cousins, and everybody lost their mind in Washington. They're like, you've got RG3. Why do you need Kirk Cousins? It's a wasted draft pick. But if it wasn't for Kirk Cousins, Washington wouldn't have made it as far as they did that year. He took up the slack after RG3 got hurt a little bit. Then things kind of happened in Washington, and he bet on himself a few times. He wanted a fully guaranteed contract. Didn't happen. Washington didn't want to pay him. For that, I blame Dan Snyder, who thankfully is no longer the owner. He goes to Minnesota, has an outstanding rest of his career. Now he's in Atlanta. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I really don't know, man, because he doesn't have Justin Jefferson anymore. Well, here's the thing. It's a whole kind of chicken and egg thing. And, listen, does it having Justin Jefferson make Kirk Cousins, or did having not an outstanding, extremely talented, mobile quarterback make Justin Jefferson, but he was good enough? That's kind of what God asked of us. He just asked us to be good enough. Okay. He was already great. He was already perfect. We don't have to worry about doing that. Kirk Cousins just has to be good enough in Atlanta, and Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, all those, Darnell Mooney, all those guys can be phenomenal for fantasy football. Almost said for Washington. I know I'm wishful thinking. I'm starting to reminisce. But Kirk Cousins' ADP, and we're going to run down this real quick. His ADP for 2024 is quarterback 18. Guys, that's a backup quarterback on your fantasy team, okay? That is a phenomenal place to get Kirk Cousins as quarterback 18. He's going in like double-digit rounds. It's crazy how late you can get a good fantasy quarterback. And for his ADP in 2023, he was quarterback 13. Now, he takes a dip because he's leaving one offense. He's having to learn another one. He's got different weapons. He's coming off of an ACL tear. And by the way, I want to interject here just real quick personally. My nephew Lawson. Hey Law, how you doing? Thoughts and prayers are going out to Lawson today. He broke his toe, and I know you might not be thinking that's a big thing, but as I've said on the show before, he recently got his fourth degree junior black belt, and while practicing his karate, he broke his toe. Now, that might not seem like a big deal, but he has been training for years for the JV soccer squad in his school. And down here in the South, soccer is not that big of a deal. But I'm telling you right now, back up in Maryland, it is huge. Okay. So, Lawson, I want you to remember something. Don't give up. Don't get discouraged. And take a note out of Kirk Cousins. And I know you remember Kirk, or at least hearing about him. Remember, Kirk Cousins had an ACL tear. That was a lot worse than a broken toe. He has come back. He is going to be better than ever, and so will you. So keep your head up, buddy. I love you. Praying for you. So back to Kirk. Kirk Cousins' ADP was 13 in 2023. That's because he was attached to Justin Jefferson's, also because he finished as the QB 12 multiple years in a row. Now, his stats for 2023 was QB 23. Why? Because he got hurt week 8. Okay, week 8, ACL tear, out for the season. Horrible injury. Hate seeing it. Now, why do we have Kirk Cousins at such a high regard in the fantasy community? Here's why. You got to go back to 2022, just 2 years removed from him being, get this, the QB6. Yes, he was statistically from Sleeper, the QB6 in 2022. Now, in 2023, just last year, prior to his injury, here was his finishes weeks 1 through 8. QB 10, QB 1, QB 3, QB 21, QB 10, QB 22, QB 7, and QB 11. Listen, when you've got a QB1 finish, and remember, QB1, RB1, wide receiver 1 is all from 1 to 12. Okay. So there was only 9 other guys better than him. And in week 2, there was nobody better than him. He was the number 1 fantasy quarterback that year or that week. Okay. He was on a great path to fantasy greatness last year. He was playing phenomenal. And I believe that he can still be that this year in Atlanta with the weapons that he has. And remember, I've told you before, having a bad defense with a good offense is fantasy gold. Guess what? Atlanta's defense is not that great, and they're going to have to put up points in order to win. Okay. He's got Drake London, wonderful wide receiver. Kyle Pitts. Everybody has been waiting for this kid to break out ever since his rookie year when he had a 1,000-yard season. Bijan Robinson. We are looking to take the top off of defenses with this guy. He is getting ready to step into fantasy greatness with Kirk Cousins as his quarterback. Now, if you can't get those guys, if for some reason you can't get a piece of those pieces of the offense, get this. Darnell Mooney was requested by Kirk Cousins to come to Atlanta with him. Okay. So when you've got a quarterback that's asking for a wide receiver, there's something special there. So I'm not worried about Drake London being great. I think he can be. I think he's a phenomenal talent. I'm not worried about Kyle Pitts. I have a little bit of a concern about him actually paying off. But if he doesn't, Darnell Mooney is going to be at least the number 3, possibly the number 2 option in that offense in the passing game. So now his offensive line, He's going from the Vikings, and remember, I'm using the PFF, the Pro Football Focus ranking here. The Vikings ranked 13th in the offensive line. The Falcons, 6th. He's getting a massive upgrade here in offensive line protection, so he should be fine. Now, the only thing that is throwing a monkey wrench in all this is the ownership of the Atlanta Falcons. They drafted Michael Penix Jr. I don't know why. They gave Kirk Cousins a lot of money to come there, and I'm not really sure why they drafted this guy. The only way that this works out is if this ACL tear is more severe, and if he is not on track to start week 1, then Michael Penix will be starting. However, this is why we watch preseason. I encourage you, catch as many games as you can. Don't think of it as worthless football. There's always information to be gained. So make sure you're paying attention to all the reports that are coming out of camp starting today. All this preseason stuff, all this hype that's happened before August, I try to tune it out. So all of June, July, all that stuff, I don't worry about it. It's all coach speak. It's not a big deal. So moving on, we're looking at Russell Wilson. Now I'm laughing because my boy Billy in our league of record here at Faith and Football, he forgot to request off for our draft last year, and Billy had his wife draft for him, as I've mentioned before, and Russell Wilson was his first pick. That's right, Russell Wilson was number 1 overall for Billy's team at pick 6. Yeah, Billy got the golden plunger this past year, which is the prize for the worst team in our league. So he's looking to make a comeback this year, along with Russell Wilson, who left Denver after a abysmal season. Now, statistically, he didn't do that bad, but he's also got competition now. He's got Justin Fields. The latest report that I'm seeing is that Justin Fields is challenging for the starting job in Pittsburgh. Now, you say, Pittsburgh, what do you think of? Defense and run game. Not a whole lot of fantasy football to come out of this. However, I will point this out, that Najee Harris, with a rubber arm, end of his career, Ben Roethlisberger, was absolutely phenomenal in his rookie year with all the checkdowns. Now, if Russell Wilson does get this gig, he is a adequate time manager, game manager type quarterback at this stage of his career. Let me give you a little stats on him. QB 30 is his ADP this year in 2024. Last year, his ADP was 20. He finished QB 12 last year. Like I said, not that bad statistically, but I'm letting you know right now, if you had Russell Wilson on your team, you weren't happy, and you probably didn't win a lot. Now, Justin Fields, ADP in 2024 is QB 33. You're basically going to be able to get him for free. So go through your draft, see how low he drops, and keep an eye out during the preseason, because if you're drafting as late as we are, which is the Tuesday before the kickoff game and Thursday, then he's probably going to rise up a little bit. I don't know how much, but it's worth keeping an eye on, okay? Now, in 2023, his statistics, he finished QB 19, but he was being drafted as a QB 6. Had a lot of upside. Had a lot of people looking at him going, man, this guy's going to be great. They're going to unlock him. And they never did. They unlocked him a couple of times for a couple of games, but nothing serious. Now, I'll let you know right now, I lost big time when DJ Moore blew up for against Washington for, I believe it was about 50 points. It was crazy. But it wasn't sustained. So what are we going to see out of Justin Fields? Now, I believe that it's going to take probably 2 interceptions in the same game for Russell Wilson to lose his job in season, or Justin Fields to just take over in the preseason. Now, here's the good thing. Mike Tomlin is the head coach of the Steelers. This guy's a no-nonsense coach. If you screw up, you're gone. You're on the bench. Somebody else is coming in to do your job. Okay? So, if you're looking for a stabilizing quarterback, I would say take Justin Fields as late as you can. Watch him on the waiver wire. He's probably going to be somebody you'll be able to pick up after your draft. Keep an eye on. Is definitely a situation. They do have weapons. Pat Freiermuth, I forget the offensive coordinator at the moment. He was formerly a head coach in Atlanta, and now that he's gone, all the weapons at Atlanta should be unleashed. But very run heavy and very friendly to the tight end position. So Pat Freiermuth, Jalen Warren, and Najee Harris, both the running backs from Pittsburgh, should have very good years this year. Let's see. Now, the O-line in Pittsburgh has a PFF ranking of 6. The Bears had a PFF ranking of 11 and Denver of 15. So both of these quarterbacks are getting an upgrade. So we're going to be able to see who is actually the better quarterback behind a decent O-line. So keep an eye out in preseason. Watch these guys closely. Now, I'm going to skip down because I went number 1 with Kirk Cousins, number 2 and 3 with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And I'm going to switch this up just a touch from my notes. I'm going to talk about Sam Howell for just a second. Yes, I'm a little biased. I love Sam Howell. Okay, I absolutely love this guy. He was a horrible fantasy or horrible NFL quarterback, but he was wonderful for fantasy at times. This guy was just absolutely crazy. Let's see, weeks 5 and 6, he was QB5, QB4, and weeks 8 and 10, he was QB1 and QB3. So this guy threw all over the place. At one point in time, he led the NFL in pass attempts. Led the NFL. Did you hear me? Led the NFL. That's crazy. Coming from a team that was bottom of the barrel last year. Yes, I said it. I'm a realist. I'm a diehard Skins fan, but I'm also a realist. I know what bad is, and they were bad last year. So I'll call a spade a spade. Now, the weapons that he has, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, JSN for short, going behind a bottom of the barrel O-line. So he's going to be running. He's going to be dumping the ball off. So the running backs in Seattle, Zach Charbonnet, Ken Walker, those guys should see an uptick in involvement in the passing game if Sam Howell takes over. Now, all that I'm hearing is that Sam Howell, and if I miss this quote, I apologize, but there was a beat writer for Seattle that said he is coming dangerously close to being having an abysmal target as quarterback. So, I'm sorry, dangerously close to being abysmally inaccurate. That was what they had said. So he's not just inaccurate; he's being abysmally inaccurate. So if you want to keep an eye on Sam Howell, fine. I would lean more toward Geno Smith in Seattle and the weapons that he has. I think that Gino, with this new head coach, it's not Pete Carroll anymore. It's the head coach from Washington, from the Huskies in the college ranks, that is getting his first gig. New OC, very pass heavy. So watch out for this. It's going to be very interesting to see Seattle. I'm excited to see Seattle in the preseason and see what they do, because they're going to be in some shootouts. Their division is going to be crazy. Okay. So remember, they got the Rams, they got Arizona, they got San Fran. I mean, it's just going to be nuts. So keep an eye out. Now, the last guy I'm going to talk about, this guy is basically, now I just turned 50. So as far as football terms go, this guy's over the hill. Okay. And I'm talking about the one, the only Mr. Joe Flacco as my number 5 quarterback to talk about that has changed teams. Now, you might remember Joe Flacco last year with the Browns. Deshaun Watson goes down. The Browns don't have anybody to back this kid up, and they go and reach out to, off the couch, put his pizza down, get up, go to Cleveland, and does nothing short of a miracle in Cleveland with the Browns and lead them to a playoff run. Absolutely amazing. This guy was crazy down the stretch. You don't believe me? Let's just run through these stats real quick, okay? We'll go through his ADP first. He was a free agent in 2023, so he really didn't have an ADP. But his ADP in 2024, right now, backing up Anthony Richardson, who played 4 whole games last year, four whole games, missed for a concussion, shoulder injury, and another concussion, if I'm not mistaken. I know two concussions definitely, and the shoulder injury. Now, I'm not saying that I'm wishing anything on anyone, but the probability that Anthony Richardson gets hurt again is there. It's real. We've seen it happen. So I'm not scared to draft Michael Pittman. I'm not scared to draft Jonathan Taylor, simply because I know that Joe Flacco has been there, done that, and can do it again if need be. So here was his finish last year. Oh, and by the way, slight upgrade in offensive line, goes from the Browns, who were 4, to the Colts, who were 3. His finishes week 13 through 17. What weeks are those? Oh, nothing more than the fantasy playoffs and the game before the fantasy playoffs that you might need to get in the fantasy playoffs. So weeks 13 through 17, he finished QB 12, QB 7, QB 13, QB 2, and QB 4. So your semifinal game, he was QB 2. Your championship game, he was QB 4. So, yeah, I think Joe Flacco is going to be adequate as a backup. So, why do I mention these backups, and why do I talk about them like this? Because when you're drafting wide receivers and you've got a decision to make, do I want to take this wide receiver or that wide receiver? You know, do I want to take Michael Pittman in Indianapolis, or do I want to take Jalen Waddle? Those guys are going back to back right now on sleeper. So if I have a choice between a number 1 wide receiver in Michael Pittman or a number 2 wide receiver in Jalen Waddle, who is on a much more potent offense with a quarterback who is probably 1 concussion away from being knocked out of the league in Tua, I'm probably going to lean Michael Pittman, simply because I know that if that starting quarterback goes down, I'm going to be okay, that the backup is going to be fine. that he can help support at least the number one guy. See, if Tua goes down, Tyreek's going to be okay. Jalen Waddle, we'll see. Not saying that he's not talented, not saying that he's not worth the pick, and not saying that you should draft thinking of injury, because injuries can happen anytime, anywhere to anyone. Speaking of which, quarterback injury update that I want to point out to you guys as we go into the preseason. Justin Herbert has been diagnosed with a issue with his plantar fascia. And I might be saying that wrong, so correct me. I'm sure that my wonderful, beautiful tech crew, aka my wife, Amanda, will be putting that down on the bottom of the screen, and you can read it for yourself. But it's a foot injury, and he's being recommended to be in a boot pretty much all preseason, and then slowly work his way back into playing mode. So he should be ready for the start of week 1. And of course, I wouldn't be remiss if I did not mention, along with the injury updates for my wonderful sponsors. Number one, Zia of Lafayette at 235 Ducey Road, Lafayette, Louisiana. If you want to go down there and see them, tell them that you saw me or you heard about them from me on this channel. Go down there, show them that you subscribed, and you will be able to get for your table any appetizer that you want. Okay. My boy Leonard down there has given me the okay, he's given me the go ahead and the blessing to offer my viewers any appetizer you want if you mention that you heard about Zia on Faith and Football with Neil. So get down there at 235 Ducey Road. It's off of Johnson Street, right behind the Grand Theater, right in front of Red Laurel's Health Club. Or you can call them for your catering needs, 337-406-0013. And my boy Andy would be more than happy to hook you up some great catering. Look, the ribs are off the chain. The grits, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'll continue to say it. If you could carry these around with you, you could probably trade them for just about anything in town, provided that the people like grits. Sometimes even if they don't like grits, that's how good these things are. So go down there, get you some ribs, get you some grits, check out the rotisserie, and check out the ancho shrimp appetizer. That is phenomenal, guys. So check them out. Tell them that Neil sent you from Faith and Football. Pick up your free appetizer. Down the bottom, subscribe, like, share, do all that stuff. Hit the notification bell and leave a comment and let me know what you got. Okay. Also, Keller's Bakery, my boy Dusty, we're coming up. We are less than a month away from the draft day, and we are exactly 1 month away from the kickoff of real football. I can't wait. And my boy Dusty is going to be down there on draft night with some goodies from Keller's Bakery and at 627 Lafayette Street, Youngsville, Louisiana. You can go down there and check him out. He will be open either this week or next, and I'm going to be getting with him and asking him what I can get my viewers where they go down. If y'all go down there and say hi to him, again, same thing as with Zia, tell him that you heard about Keller's from me, and we'll get you a nice sweet treat while you go down and pick up your donuts or your pastries or whatever it is you want. Their pies are phenomenal. Cookies are off the chain. Love them. They're great. And Dusty is coming up with stuff all the time. So if you want, go down to Keller's. I'm telling you, remember, Keller's in Youngsville, not Keller's downtown. Keller's in Youngsville, 627 Lafayette Street. Put it in your Google Maps. Go down there and check them out. Also, Amis Grocery at 603 Jefferson Street, inside of Gordon Square, downtown Lafayette. Look, if you're around downtown, maybe you're out there, you're down there at the park, there's an event going on, you're checking out the museum, whatever it is that you're doing, stop by 603 Jefferson Street, Amis Groceries. Tell them Neil sent you, said hi. Look, they have phenomenal local items. They've got local farm fresh eggs, local beef, local pork, absolutely phenomenal breakfast and lunch specials. Now, they do close at 5, so make sure you go down there and check them out during the day. So if you're around town, you're running errands, you're hungry, go stop by Amis. He's got stuff on the go, won't slow you down. Tell him Neil sent you, and tell him I said hey. So with that being said, I want you to remind you guys of today's scripture, Luke 22, verses 55 through 61. I want you to go check that out. I want you to go read that. Talking about Peter denying Christ. And then Mark 16, verse 7, where the angel of the Lord asked specifically for Peter. I want you to remember, God is calling you. God is calling you specifically. Okay. I know that you messed up. I know that, you've done wrong. I know I've been there. Okay. That's how I know. I know because I've been there. Jesus walked on this earth so he could get to know, so he could get to understand what it's like to go through the things that we go through. He made it through so that we can make it to him. So remember that we serve the God of second chances, that we are to forgive each other, not just once, not just twice, but as Jesus forgave us, so we are to forgive others. So walk into tomorrow, whatever day you're listening to this, walk into that day with a new attitude, a new perspective, that you're going to be forgiving, that you're going to give grace and mercy and love just the way that you want to receive it. You got to give it out to receive it. So remember, mock coming up on August. This is the time to practice, and it's always the time to practice the Word of God. And remember, football's good, but God is greater. See you guys next time on Faith in Football. Y'all have a good one.